Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Mr. Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast and the Kings Herald. What's up, Brenden?
Good. I feel honored in the first introduction this time.
He's the first. And then, of course, Fox 40's Sean Cunningham. What's going on, Sean?
I feel like I'm not worthy of such a deep voice of an intro that's like Fox 40, and then it's just like, hi. It's just me. It's just Sean. So, I'm doing good. Gentlemen? I'm great. I'm enjoying the NBA Finals. We're 1-1. I'm glad they're in Boston, and I'm in Sacramento, and I get to kind of chill for... You know what I get to do, actually? I get to go play Edgewood Golf Course on Wednesday in Lake Tahoe, the site of the American Century Championship, which is the Tahoe celebrity event. And I'm stoked, but my golf game is absolute hot garbage.
Are you like a Charles Barkley, Chris Webber type?
Oh, I could beat them. I could absolutely beat them.
Okay.
But not much better.
I know years ago, Derek Martin used to come into the Copeland Sports that I worked at, and he would borrow golf clubs. He would like take our demos, like when they were going on the road. Weber snapped the head off of 2 or 3 ping drivers. he's no good. Well, he wasn't. I don't know if he is now. I mean, like
no, he's not good. No,
yeah.
he's not good. No,
the
simple answer is no.
Yeah, out of all that group, Bobby is the best from what and Doug is like hyper focused on getting better. But
yeah, Bobby's gotten really good, and
yeah.
Doug for. Considering all the work he's put into it, I think Doug is pretty good.
I was with Doug. We were golfing Catavadera the day that he broke 90 for the first time. He shot, I think, an 88 at Catavadera. I did not shoot an 88 because my back problems. It takes me like 5 or 6 holes to warm up, and then by like the 13th, I'm shot completely because of my back. So, yeah, it's not good. Brenden, are you a golfer at all?
No golfing experience, no. The most I've done is I've gone to a driving range a couple times. I'm a top golf guy.
Okay.
Or one time I think, I went to a driving range with a friend and his dad. And his dad was having some conversation while I was younger. And I was trying to putt on the little area they have there where you can practice. And I had only done mini golf. And I hit the ball way too hard into the guy that my friend's dad was having a conversation with. And he wasn't too happy with me. That was the end of golf for me.
Okay. Yeah, I used to golf a ton, but eventually the back just caught up to me. So, and then my oldest, he started golfing because a bunch of his buddies play for Sierra College, and it's a pain in the butt because he's left-handed. So, like I did like crazy eBay and like Facebook Marketplace shopping and got him golf clubs, but now he has like this really amazing set of golf clubs, and now he's not using them again. So. Yeah, it's typical. Random. We're just getting off course like we always do here on the Kings Beat podcast.
Golf talk.
Okay, so let's just do the basics. Number one, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to go down below and give us a thumbs up and subscribe. We're growing crazy, which is awesome and a lot of fun. Number 2, we got new Kings Beat happy hour shirts, which are pretty bomb.
Oh, I saw that. Those look pretty cool.
Yeah, they're nice, man. Yeah. Got a little the back is cool. It's got a little martini glass and a basketball inside the martini glass. Yeah. So that's good stuff. Those are on the Kings Beat merch shop, which is again down below in the description. Right now we have a 15% promo code, which is I think KB Pod. But it's down again in the description wherever you're listening to your podcast. Lastly, we're growing on the Kings Beat like crazy, like we were talking about, but so is the newsletter. So make sure to subscribe to the newsletter so you get this podcast dropped right into your email every Tuesday and Thursday, but also all the other things that we do, writing and stuff like that. So outside of that, guys, we got a pretty interesting finals, and we're going to start there with Tuesday overreactions, because Sean hates Tuesday overreactions.
I do. Not on Tuesday. Nothing against Tuesday. Just overreactions.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last pod we did was on Thursday, and I believe was it Thursday night that the Golden State Warriors got beat up by the Boston Celtics. which of course brings us to the overreaction, which is that Brenden is a genius, a boy genius,
Clearly.
that has called the NBA Finals, and Sean and I are boobs.
And then we just ignore game 2, and it's perfect.
Yeah, what do you guys think? I mean, this is it's kind of what we thought it would be. It's to me, it's like the Warriors punch you right in the face in the third quarter, and if you can get up off the canvas and throw in a bunch of threes, you're okay. If you can't, you're done. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, and James, this is exactly, we were talking about a little off air with Brenden a minute ago. This is exactly what I thought would happen in this series, because the Boston Celtics, for as great as they are defensively, for whatever reason, go into these lulls in the postseason where they just can't score. And you look at how they were able to score in Game 1, it looked like they couldn't miss. 21 threes, one shy of the season high, and you've got Al Horford looking like a freaking Hall of Famer out there. Maybe he is still, I don't know. Maybe, I guess that's probably
He's a
not.
bubble Hall of Famer.
Bubble Hall of Famer. But just looking incredible. I mean, that was the best finals debut since Chris Paul. And I know, that Chris Paul was just a year before, but to be of that age and have that type of outing, and in a game where Jason Tatum was a playmaker. He wasn't the scorer that he was in Game 2. So Jason Tatum becomes that scorer in Game 2, and nobody else scores. Al Horford and Marcus Smart both were held to like 2 points each, and Horford had 27 in the previous game, and I forget what Marcus did, but he was a factor offensively as well. Both players just completely disappear. Warriors make an adjustment. They go off in the third. All of a sudden, Jordan Poole looks like Jordan Poole again after sinking a half-court shot to end that incredible third quarter. And it's just what the Warriors do. Third quarters are so pivotal for them. You didn't even have to play Steph in the fourth, and that was a game. So Game 2 was a little bit more indicative of what I thought would happen more times than not in this series. Again, that was the prediction I had made earlier. But again, I preface that by saying I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I want to see a series. I had Warriors in 5. Now, I don't have delusions of grandeur in thinking that the Warriors are going to go out and sweep by any means. But what I take from these two games, it's 1-1 going to Boston. Boston has a home court now, and now we have a series. I hope we really have a series, and I just don't want it to be so lopsided in that second half, because for that first half, guys, that first half looked incredible.
Yeah, I think both games, the first half has been highly competitive, and it really does come down to like these wonky third quarters where, they're beating you up by 20. Brenden, what are your thoughts? I mean, you're still in it. You're still in it, man.
Still in it. Yeah, I mean, I was shocked that Boston won Game 1. I thought that there was going to be an adjustment to just the communication of like a switch everything with the Golden State Warriors and just how different they are to guard, specifically Steph Curry. And you saw it a little bit at the beginning of Game 1. They had some pretty poor coverages in the first quarter, really let Steph get going. And I think you saw a little bit of that same thing in the third quarter of Game 2, where it was just like Steph got 1 or 2 clean looks, and then from there he's on fire. So I think that it's kind of just about Celtics cleaning that up a little bit, and some of the other guys just have to hit shots. I think that there's a middle ground there where in Game 1 the other guys are making everything. You saw a career high in 3 points from Derek White and Al Horford, and then Game 2 it feels like nobody but Derek White did all right, but then Tatum and Jalen are the only ones scoring. Like Sean mentioned, Horford and Smart are MIA. You don't get much from Grant Williams on the offensive end. Like, they just need their role players to be able to hit shots. I think Jaylen Brown needs to be a little bit better as well. And as long as Curry doesn't get a couple easy looks, I think they can try to slow him down from getting in too much of a rhythm, because then he just hits some crazy ones. The real interesting thing to me that I saw last game was, like Sean mentioned, like Jordan Poole got his confidence back. And I think Steph is going to be Steph. He's going to get his. It's about, is somebody else going to be able to get them close to 20 that night? And I think that Klay can be that guy, but Klay's been shaky to me since he's come back from injury. He's still not the Klay Thompson that I think of when I think of Klay typically. But Poole has the capability of being that. He really stepped up this year. So if he can kind of keep that confidence going into these next games and be a factor, I think that Golden State is in a pretty good spot. To me, it's the stars are going to do what they do, what other role players shine.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I also think that the Warriors specifically took away Horford. Like, they didn't let Horford do his thing. Because I think that what they realized is that Horford is sort of like that elder statesman that everyone respects so much on that team. And that when you get him going, it really, like, energizes the rest of the group. And especially when he starts bearing three after three. If you can limit that and even keep him to, 10 to 12 points a game, I don't know the Boston can keep up. It takes Herculean effort in the fourth quarter for them to come back and win that game, a game one. But like, are you going to get that again from Horford? Are you going to get it from Derek White again? That's a lot. That's a lot to expect. Now they can do something, but I don't expect them to do as much as they did.
I hope this is an overreaction, but I think what happened with the Celtics had a lot to do with what happened with Robert Williams. I mean, Time Lord, the knee is a problem, and he was pretty much banged up going into that game. He was definitely done, and the overreaction part is I don't think we may not see him in the rest of the series. I think it's very likely he misses the next game. I think he probably should miss the next game. The way he was dragging that leg, I mean, that's kind of a scary sight, and he means so much to what they do. Maybe they kind of roll the dice a little bit, and if they have to bring him out for a game 4, maybe. But goodness, I think things went really south when he came out of the game.
Where are you guys at with like the physicality of the game? I feel like game 2 they were really letting them play even more so than they did in game 1, and both these teams are willing to be physical and play that brand of basketball, but I felt like the whistle was pretty different.
Well, Draymond
I agree.
Draymond made it a point. I mean, he said he had to play different. Steph Curry said that 5 minutes after game 1, that's when he knew there was a different Draymond Green heading into game 2. And you saw it. He tackled Grant Williams. He and Grant Williams were just mixing it up. He wanted to pick up his early technical to kind of set the tone and then kind of feel some things out the rest of the way. And it definitely made an impact. I will say this. I think every time I've covered, this is the 6th time we're covering the Warriors, at least I am, covering the Warriors in the NBA Finals. And every time teams try to press the buttons of the Warriors, try to knock them around, and they think they're a finesse team, what have you. But they respond typically very well to physicality. And you've seen Memphis, who tried to rough them up, and I think, Memphis probably did a better job at it. And I think that's what you're almost counting on, Memphis-like physicality from Boston, and they needed to do it. But once you just smack them in the mouth, building such a lead like that, like you thought in the first game, Boston twice rallied from sizable deficits. One was 12 points. I mean, we talked about it. That was in game 1. It was a 12-point deficit going into the 4th. And they end up winning by 12. So a 24-point swing. And that was the second time they had to rally from a pretty sizable deficit. You didn't see that in game 2. And I think it's because the Draymond Green factor, where he had his teams really essentially slap them back in the mouth, and it worked.
Yeah, I think the physicality to open the 4th is what just ended the game. Like, if Boston can bounce back in the 4th, you're fine. Because that they're going to do something in the 3rd. There's no way to stop them. Whatever it is that they do at halftime, I don't know. It's crazy. But they come out with a different game plan, a different energy. They are a lot tougher than people think they are. Yeah. They are extremely physical for a non-physical team. Like, you don't expect them to be physical. And I think what they did is in the 4th quarter, they came out with that physical presence early in the quarter and just kind of stopped it. Like, look, we took the big lead, and we're not going to give it up. If you're going to come back, it's going to have to be on again a bunch of crazy, crazy three-point shots. I'll also say this, like, Draymond Green, he's 2 technicals away now from suspension. So that's a big deal because he could miss a game in the finals, and that's just crazy talk. I mean, you could have, 4 more games, 5 more games, right?
I'm having flashbacks, yeah.
Yeah, how is he going to be able to control himself for 5 more games? There isn't that moment where he goes out and gets his early technical because he can't.
He could have got ejected last game.
Yeah. Well, and that would have put him 1 technical away from missing a finals game. That to me is just absolutely wild. So that's something to keep an eye on. And there's potential for this to be a good series still. I mean, I think I chose Warriors in 6. Sean, Warriors in 5. Brennan, you said
Boston 7.
Boston 7. I think everybody's still on the table. And I know people like in the comment section were like, oh, James and Sean like underestimated the Celtics. Like, it's early. It's early.
No,
Yeah.
I like the Celtics. I just think, and
Yeah.
again, the thing I'll give the Celtics a huge credit is, look at the path they've taken. I mean, you're talking Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Miami, Golden State. I mean, that's a road. I mean, I think that's the biggest. That's if you were to choose a path to your trophy, they've got the hardest. Of any team in the NBA, I think that their path to the finals was absolutely the hardest, and I give them a ton of credit. I just think that, again, not having seen the best of the Warriors yet, which I still don't think we have, maybe in that third quarter. I mean, again, maybe in that third quarter, but they're just. I just think they're too good. They're too polished. They've been here, done that. And I like teams that don't know that they're not supposed to be there. And I'm not saying that that's the Celtics. I think the Celtics just have that you don't know what you don't know yet. Like, you haven't been here into this stage. But I don't necessarily think it's a hindrance for them. I think it's an advantage because they play with a different type of reckless abandon that can cause disruption to so many teams. And you've got a sensational superstar in Jason Tatum who's absolutely sensational. And 2 years from now, we might be talking about a different Celtics team, and this might be the springboard for them.
That's what this feels like. It's a springboard. Mm-hmm. It's the one thing that, they're coming out of this so battle tested that they probably got 2 or 3 years of playoffs in one. That's what you're always hoping, that if you're a team that's sneaking in as an 8 seed or a 7 seed, like, give somebody a run. Like, make it a 6-game or a 7-game series in round 1. And
Minnesota.
if there's some way you get to the second round, that's just another year that you're skipping. That's huge for a young team to get that playoff experience. I think it's great.
I thought on Golden State's side that Gary Payton was pretty good. His first game back, and I think that I know Iguodala wasn't available. I thought even when he wasn't very good in game 1. I think that if Payton and Iguodala are both available, I would prefer to, if I'm on Golden State side, throw Payton out there, give a little bit more to Otto Porter. I think he's more impactful.
I think Porter and Looney, to me, are the unsung heroes of the Warriors this postseason. And I agree with you, Brendan. I think, especially with Gary Payton, he had a layup, or he went hard. He went down pretty hard on the baseline, and it was kind of similar to when he broke his elbow in that Memphis series. But when he did that, I almost went like, oh my gosh, is he okay? Whatever. Like, and he got back up, and it's like, I wonder if that was like something that he had to prove to himself. Like, no, I'm good. I hit the floor again. No big deal. That part's out of. I checked that box. Go play.
I'm intrigued to see what he makes this summer. Well, I don't. I don't think he'll get like the Garrett Temple contract that the Kings gave Garrett Temple, the 3-year 24 or whatever it was. But I still think he's going to get. I mean, he'll at least get the biannual exception. He'll at least get like $5 million a year, I would assume, like a 2-year 10. I don't know. Like, he's been good. Yeah. So, defensive game changer.
A lot of teams could use it.
And of course, he's a start of a conversation about how important every single guy on the roster is, right? Being the 15th guy this year for them.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's like, the Kings don't have to improve. Like, they have to improve like 1 through 8, but they also have to improve 9 through 15. I mean, walking into the last couple of seasons without like strong players at every position. Sorry, the little one is barking today.
So they need to improve their whole roster.
Yeah. Yeah, the Kings. Yeah, she agrees that the Kings have to improve their whole roster, and she hasn't even got to see much basketball because she's very young. She survived part of this season. She was around for part of this season, but she saw enough to know that the roster isn't good enough. I think the squirrel outside my window also saw enough to know that the roster wasn't good enough. But we've got a lot of this is, of course, like rumor innuendo time in the NBA, especially when it comes to the draft. There's a lot of talk that Jaden Ivey might be moving up into the top 2. And that would be crazy. It would be crazy good for the Kings because I think Jaden Ivey, like, while I would gamble on him, and I think we've had this discussion, we probably all would gamble on him at number 4.
Is it a gamble?
Well, I don't know. I think you would
F4?
prefer though that you didn't have to make that move. I think it's not a gamble on his talent. It's a gamble on how he'll fit long term and if it will work at all with Fox, and if you're just creating another situation where you got to go out and make more changes, right? That's what I mean by gamble, because I think he's going to be really good. And I've said this before, I don't think I would really concern myself with De'Aaron Fox when it comes to making that pick. But if he does move into the top 2, it pushes one of these big guys down to the Kings. And I don't know, we've talked about him a little bit, but I think today we'll focus a little bit more in on Paolo Banchero from Duke. And, Sean, you're a Dukey guy. Like, you've said a couple of times that you thought he was a little soft, that you had concerns about him, but I don't know. What are your thoughts now? Like, have you done the deep dive into Paolo Banchero?
I mean, I did all year long in watching them, and it's crazy. I don't think I watched a single game where the name Jason Tatum wouldn't come up in terms of what they are offensively. In fact, somebody recently, I wish I had it in front of me because I saw it this morning waking up, but somebody did a melt of him and Jason Tatum together, where here's Jason Tatum driving, reverse pivot, dunk. Here's Paolo Banchero doing the same move, and it's every move that Banchero made, they had one for Jason Tatum, and they're trying to kind of bring out more and more of the comparison of the two, especially on the offensive end. Because again, when I've talked about Jason Tatum in this podcast before about what an ISO player he used to be, and I those were type of you talk about like just absolute ISO scorer. That was Jason Tatum, and now I talked about a minute ago. You saw what he was in Game 1 of the Finals, total playmaker. I mean, the guy's evolved his game. He has gotten better. But you're talking about two dudes who went to Duke that Coach K was absolutely giddy over both of them, and both of them will probably go in the top 3. So I think that's the comparison there. And again, every time I watch a Duke game, Tatum's name would come up, and I know that Banchero really idolizes Tatum, but I don't know if idolizes is the right word, but like he definitely admires him and sees a little bit of himself in that. So I think there's something to like there. He's got all the tools. He's just, to me, shies a little bit away from contact. And I think for me, especially being a Duke supporter like I am, I like watching. I wish he had a little bit more toughness to him. I think it could have been super helpful for that team, especially. And I was a big AJ Griffin fan too. I think he's one of the best shooters in the draft. But comparatively, like he's a reason. I thought Banchero was a reason that Mark Williams looked so much better throughout the season, was because of the toughness that Mark Williams brought, and they really, really needed it. So if Banchero was a little bit more tougher instead of a little bit more maybe finesse, it's not really a slight. I just felt like that would have helped Duke so much more, and that's kind of one of the things I said, man, I wish he was a little bit more physical, a little bit more tougher. But that's really just being picky, because he has all those tools, and just really, really solid player. And I think he's going to be a hell of a pro, even if he doesn't become a little bit more physical, which I think he probably will, just being in the NBA and just by virtue of growing and getting to a system that can develop him.
Yeah, Brenden, do you like that comp?
I like it better than people saying, oh, he's a Duke big, I'm not doing it. Like, well, look at Marvin Bagley. I think it's good to remind people that there's a lot of good players to come out of Duke with Jason Tatum, Brandon Ingram, Kyrie Irving. There's a lot of good players that come out of Duke. Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, even if you want to throw role players, Tyus Jones in there. Like, there's good players to come out of Duke. So it's always funny to me. Yeah, it's always funny to me. People are like, I'm never taking a big man out of Duke again. And it's like, yeah. So a little over the top there.
I even said Cam, by the way, because Cam was a guy who was frustrating at Duke, and I kept saying to everybody, I was like, this guy's going to be a hell of a pro. And I still think he will. Yeah.
He's got a lot of work to do.
I don't think that there's the fluidity almost of Tatum. Like, I mean, no comp's going to be perfect. I know you're not saying they're the exact same player or anything.
Tatum's
like
on another level. It's just
the isolation creation though is intriguing. Like, doesn't have the same like ridiculously high releases as Tatum. I don't see him like hitting at the same amount of tough shots, but Paolo was really good at creating space, and especially for a guy that's 6'10" and 7'1" wingspan, like has a really good handle to him. Not insanely impressive or anything, but certainly enough, combined with his frame, and he's got a decent amount of moves. I think he's a little more like jerky with his moves than like a fluid and smoothness, but that still works just fine. I believe in his 3-point shooting. Like, I don't think that it's great, and that's something that if he were to go to the Kings, for example, could cause, there would just be some growing pains, and I do think the spacing wouldn't be the most ideal with him, Sabonis, and Fox, but I think that he's a more than confident shooter. He had a couple games, especially one at the very beginning of the year against Gonzaga. Like, there's moments where he just looks supremely confident from three, and the form looks nice, and he's certainly not somebody that's going to get ignored and just allow him to shoot from distance, I don't think. I think he's good enough to be covered and acknowledged by opposing defenses out there, and his playmaking is really impressive as well. I thought that he did a good job of setting up Mark Williams. I think that he has a decent driving kick game to his passing as well, and he had some creative passes. It wasn't like I kind of have criticized Ivy for, to me, just making like the obvious pass. I thought that Paolo was willing to kind of try some skip passes and things like that were pretty impressive to me. And he's the only guy in this draft, even though I do have Jabari and Chet higher, but all kind of in the same tier. Paolo is the only one to me that I could see being a primary initiator of an NBA offense. I don't know that I'm betting on that outcome, but I think it's realistic, and I don't think you can say that for anybody else.
Yeah, he averaged 3.2 assists per game in his lone season in the ACC. That's good. He turned the ball over quite a bit, like 2.4 times a game. I think 2.4, 2.6. There's something about like when you watch a player and you start watching like every single thing that they do. There's a lot to Banchero's game that I think can be cleaned up super quick. And the biggest thing is he's really good on the 3-point shot from the corner. That's what it looked like to me. Like the short corner is probably where he will be a specialty. Like he'll be able to hit threes early in his career. But every time he gets a ball up high, he takes a bounce at least one dribble, sometimes two, sometimes four. It's just too much. Like at the NBA level, they're going to cut out that hesitation in him super quick because it's too much, and he does it all the time. It's frustrating. And when he's shooting from the corner, he'll catch and shoot. The other areas, he's not catching and shooting at all.
And if he thinks about it, it just doesn't even look the same.
No, it's a mess. Yeah, so he needs to get to a point where he doesn't even have that as part of his game. Now, he can walk up.
Sorry, and that's I'm glad Brendan mentioned that because that is the biggest thing when the comparison with Tatum. Everything is, like you mentioned, Brendan, it's fluidity. It's kind of like, James, we would talk about that with Willie Cauley-Stein a lot. When he started to think about it, you were doomed. It became mechanical. But if he made the instinctive, but if he made the instinctive, I have to make this play, he doesn't think, he just does. You're like, oh my God, where'd that come from, right? Like he would have those instinctive plays as opposed to these. Okay, I'm going to go through the motions. I'm thinking about what I'm doing. When you become from methodical and mechanical to fluid and just instinctive, that's where the talent shines. And that's the difference between somebody like Tatum and Banchero. That to me, the biggest difference, in terms of both of them at that level, not comparing him to Jason Tatum, this superstar now, but that Duke player, Jason Tatum.
Yeah, and I think Tatum at the college level and as a first 3-4 years of his career was rail thin. Like Banchero's coming in, he's a grown ass man. He's a legit 250. And I think that he can be more athletic if he gets to an NBA training staff, which I think not so much to help him with getting to the basket and dunking on people, but I think to stay in front of people, it would help him to be more.
I think it's flexibility and movement.
Yeah, just better physicality, better physical shape overall. Like an NBA training staff will hone him down and really work on his body. I never saw the Tatum comp as much as I do see Blake Griffin without the bounce, without the elite bounce. Banchero can still get up. It's not a little Carlos Boozer, players like that. Of course, he's not as physical as Boozer, but still.
Julius Randle.
Yeah, maybe a
I've
little
seen the
Julius
Randall. I've seen the
Yeah.
Randall thing a lot. Even that, I don't actually believe. I don't see any of those. To be
I don't see
honest,
Randall for sure, but
I've
yeah,
I've even seen a Juwan Howard, and even that doesn't seem right. Like
no.
I don't like any of the comps really. Like any of those, I've seen a lot of those pop up, and I just personally I don't see it. But again, comps are really so dumb. But they're just it's like
Yeah.
he's kind of his own guy, and I like a lot of a lot of things he can do. I think he's going to be a very good mold for an NBA player. I just don't know. I wouldn't predict a superstar. I wouldn't predict a star player. I think he's just going to be a very, very, very solid player, and I think he's very, very talented on the offensive end.
On the offensive end.
Yeah.
And that's where I think you run into the same fit issues that you would with like Jaden Ivey if you're talking about with the Kings. I think both Paolo and Ivey have like question marks in their three-point shooting, but personally I believe in it enough that I think that they're supremely talented that like if either one is there at 4, that the Kings should take them. Defensively is where the fit gets really wonky. Like Ivey's his own case, but for Paolo, since it's the focus today, I've kind of thought of it and just settled on I'm not going to expect anything from Banchero on the defensive end. I don't think that he's getting attacked on that end and targeted. If I'm the one drafting Banchero, then I'm taking him for what he can do on the offensive end. If anything else comes on defense, that's great, but I'm not really expecting anything. He had his moments of weak side rim protection. He also had his moments of not moving great in switches. And there were times where he was just checked out on the defensive end. I mean, the same thing you can say for Ivey. I guess it's the typical have so much responsibility on offense that sometimes it almost is kind of just taking a play off a little bit on defense and not going all out. So I'm not expecting anything from Banchero. I don't think he gets targeted on the defensive end, but I think you need somebody better than that defensively if you're building an ideal complementary backcourt piece for Domantas Sabonis.
And one of the concerns too, guys, like for me, especially, as watching as much Duke as I do, like it reached peak levels in the tournament, but I've never seen Coach K gush about a player so much, which makes me wonder about his confidence. Like, does he need this? They knew what they needed from Paolo Banchero all season long, and they wanted him to be that guy. So by virtue of Coach K just gushing about him, I get to coach Paolo Banchero. And I'm like, settle the hell down, sir. You had Grant Hill. He's not Grant Hill. Like, you had
Elton Brand.
I mean, you
You've had-
don't.
yeah.
Right. I get, okay, we get it. But, is this you're trying to boost his confidence. You're trying to make him think he belongs. You're trying to make him believe that he's something else. I wish I could talk to the guy. I haven't, I actually had an opportunity to jump on a Zoom call with him, and I wasn't able to do it because it was at 6 a.m, and I was like, no, screw that. But, but I was going to try to do something because I really would like to talk to him about his confidence. Because when you hear him interviewed, he's pretty quiet dude, but confidence leaps off the page when you talk to him. As a player, maybe it's a little bit different. I still think he's a pretty confident player, but I'm just wondering why the hell this campaign for Banchero as if you have to vote tournament's finest player or something like that. It's like Coach K was almost campaigning for people to believe in Paolo Banchero or subliminally having Paolo Banchero believe in himself, which I didn't think would be much of an issue.
Yeah, I'm not taking Coach K's word for anything when it comes to his guys. I got to be honest. I love Coach K, but he's also the guy that convinced people that Marvin Bagley could play the 3 at the NBA level.
He might be able to. We still don't know, James.
Yeah, we know, Brenden. We know. So when I look at Banchero on the defensive end, the guy who he reminds me on the defensive end, it's really Sabonis. He can defend in tight space. He's not going to be great on the perimeter. He is going to get beat off the dribble, and he's not a natural shot blocker. I looked at every single one of his blocks. Maybe 10%, maybe 10 of his 34 blocks or whatever were sustainable NBA blocks. Where a guard swooped in and he went up and over the top. There are a bunch of weird, at the NBA level, he's going to get called for a foul, getting taps from the backside and stuff like that. He's just not a good shot blocker. It's not what he does. He doesn't have a natural knack for it. and that's going to be a problem next to Sabonis. But like when I watched him play in the tournament live, I thought he did an excellent job of like taking the body contact of guys like Baycott and stuff like that. Like no one could keep that guy off the glass until Banchero got swapped onto him because all their other guys fouled out. And so I was impressed with his ability to play like man on defense in the post. But that's not going to work when you already have Sabonis who does that exact same thing. I believe in his passing skills. I think that there are times where, like, I think if I look at Banchero, I can honestly say of all the prospects in the top 10, he's the guy that I have the most faith that will be a good player right away. He'll probably, there's a good chance he'll win the Rookie of the Year. He's the guy who comes in, who's NBA ready, who has an NBA ready body, who has an NBA ready skill set that should translate instantly. And I think he'll be good. Now, 3 years from now, I don't think he'll be the best player in this draft. But early in his career, I think he'll be the best player. And I think he will probably be the best scoring player, like the most consistent scoring option that comes out of this draft, at least in the first 3 to 5 years. Now, down the road, can Ivy score more? Yeah. Is there one of these wings that's going to develop and be some elite scorer? Maybe. We don't know. But I'm pretty sure he's going to be really, really good early in his career. I don't love him as a rebounder either. I don't know. That's the other thing that kind of stands out. He's just.
I think that's more of a Duke system. Just the way they play. Just the way they play certain players. Sometimes they're farther away from the basket. That's typically, in my opinion, what rebounding is always a weird one when it comes to Duke, unless you have somebody who's like a 7-footer or who can jump out of the gym.
A Marvin Bagley or anything like that.
Well, yeah, especially him with all his came on the offensive end, but defensively, you remember he played a lot with Wendell Carter,
right.
And that was one of the things
in that zone.
Right. So Wendell Carter was the guy who would do more of that role. They relied this in Banchero's place, that's why Mark Williams looked a lot better in that role than anything Banchero would do. So that just rebounding in Duke is always a little. You have to kind of take it with a grain of salt a little bit because they rely on their big man so much.
One thing I'm really curious about with Banchero, and which we saw more at Duke, is him in the pick and roll game. Kind of playing either side of it. I think sometimes if he was in Sacramento, try Banchero running a pick and roll with Sabonis.
Well, and that's the thing, Brendan. You talk about best player available in need, right? If you're Sacramento, that's a big checked box right there, right?
Positionally, yeah. I do think the defense is tough, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You bring up the pick and roll with Sabonis. When I watched him, number one, I think he needs to play with a natural rim runner. I think Mark Williams is a good player to see him play alongside. I think if he was with Clint Capella, if he was, a natural shot blocker, almost like the guys that you see that would fit next to Sabonis, just the center version, not the power forward version. But you bring up the Sabonis sort of the pick and roll. Most of his, a lot of his passes were to Mark Williams. They were to the big. I thought his interior passing was really good, which showed me that if he can get that down, then he certainly can find guys on the perimeter. He's got good court vision. And it's someone mentioned, I can't remember, would this be the closest we've seen to Vlade Divac and Chris Webber, where you had two guys who could really pass to each other? And I don't know. It's probably I don't think Paolo is nearly as good as Chris Webber. I don't think he has the sheer athleticism of Webber, but I do get sort of the comp in that situation where you could see the Kings using them together. You could see when Sabonis goes off the court, all of a sudden you're running the offense primarily through Banchero. I could see ways that it could work as a tandem, a front court tandem.
Prior to, this is kind of a tangent, but prior to Sabonis, who were the best passing bigs Sacramento had? Is Harry Giles.
Harry
Miller
was a very talented passer. I mean, that's for all his shortcomings everywhere else and just being able to stay on the floor, his passing was incredible. But from a big, yeah, I mean, Brad could move it. Brad played with Webb and Vlade, so that was a very nice addition. You had playmaking at every position with that team. As a big since then, you really I don't probably DeMarcus. DeMarcus is a pretty gifted passer.
He is a gifted passer. I mean, he didn't rely on it heavily because he was your primary scoring option as well. But yeah, he's a very gifted passer. I mean, I don't think Banchero's going to average like 6 assists a game, like 5 assists, like even in his prime. I don't think that's where he's going to be. But if you have Harrison Barnes at the 4 or the 3, and he's forcing his way to like 3.6 assists, that's not going to be the case with Banchero. Banchero can like sleepwalk his way to 4 assists a game. And so, I mean, I think he's got a really interesting skill set. I guess we'll just put it this. If you're sitting at number 4 and Banchero is the guy who falls to you, which is totally possible at this point. I mean, I think it's possible that Chet falls to the Kings. I think it's possible. The only one I don't think would fall to the Kings is Jabari. But I think it's possible that Chet or Paolo both fall to the Kings if Ivy moves up.
Ivy would jump, yeah.
Yeah, Ivy would jump up. He's the only one, again, that has... I'm pretty much locked in that this is a top 4 draft at this point, that no one really should upset the apple cart unless the Kings do something crazy at 4, like draft for need as opposed to draft for best player available.
They would never.
Oh, of course they would. But like, what if Paolo's there? I mean, there's going to be some fit issue, but can you work through that?
Yeah. I mean, you have to. Like, it just comes back to how often is Sacramento able to get a guy that could be a star? And the answer is only the draft. So if you have that guy there available, I do kind of think you have to do it. And I don't think I look at the fit as like horrendous or anything. I think I can see how it could work. I think offensively they could be really talented. They'd have really good size, as Sean pointed out, like it's filling the position of need. Defensively, I think that there'd have to be a lot of progress. Maybe you see a little bit more switching and you actually have size that can handle that a little bit. I don't know. The defense would be tricky for Mike Brown to figure out, but I think that Banchero is so talented that there truly is like all-star upside, and I just don't see how the Kings can pass on that.
Yeah, I'd agree for the most part. I think I've said that if it's 1 through 3 and somebody upsets and jumps in there, you're comfortable taking one of those 3, whether it be Smith, Holmgren, or Banchero. But I will say, if it's Banchero that falls and Ivy is still there, and let's say for whatever reason, and this is super unlikely, but let's just say that Keegan Murray, AJ Griffin, somebody like that has jumped into the top 3, and you're having to make a decision between Banchero at that point and Ivy. I'm still thinking Ivy. I'm still kind of leaning a little bit that way, personally, because I just think he'll probably, in my opinion right now, am leaning towards him probably being the best player available. However, I could probably be talked into Banchero, and either one of them I think you'd be pretty lucky to have at number 4. So if they went Banchero, I think, yeah, great, good for you. You definitely think he'd be the best player available, and you went with it. If any of those 3 fell down, and it was obviously Smith or Holmgren, well, I'm taking either one of them. But again, I really like Jaden Ivey a lot at 4. And if it does go 1 through 3 and Ivy is at 4, then you're taking Ivy, no question.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at that grouping, because I'm kind of writing Smith in as a number 1 pick. I know there's rumors and stuff right now, but I don't buy a lot of it. I mean, everything I heard coming out of the combine was that the word on the street was Orlando was taking him at number 1. But if I look at the 3 players that could fall, one of the 3 will be there. Chet is probably the guy who is the furthest away. Well, I don't even know if I'd say that. He's the best fit of the group, but he's also the guy that I think will impact winning more than the other 2. I think Paolo is the most polished of the group, and I think the biggest upside is Ivy. And so it really is kind of like, how do you choose? I don't think that they're going to get a choice of 2 of those players. I don't think that will happen. Like there's like the word on Shaden Sharp is he's probably slid down draft boards, unless, again, like Keegan Murray or Dyson Daniels somehow slide up even further than they are right now. Then I think it would be tough to see, the Kings choosing. They're going to have to kind of just go with whoever falls to you, right?
Have to.
Yeah. I think just for the sake of conversation, what Sean presented, like choosing between Paolo or Ivy is interesting. I think I lean Paolo because I think I have Chet, Jabari, and Paolo in a top 3, and then Ivy in his own tier.
Are you doing that? Are you doing that as the Kings, or are you doing that as if I was any NBA team?
No, I always do it generally.
Yeah,
I always do it generally because I feel like you're just evaluating talent, and that's the way it should be looked at in a vacuum. And then within tiers, I feel like you can apply like fit. But if somebody's just like supremely talented, just in a basketball sense, vaguely, then I think I like to look at it just in a general NBA sense, not from the Kings' point of view. And I just think that Paolo has more sure skills. I think Ivy is a little bit more of he's ridiculously athletic, and the things that he's not great at are what are generally looked at as like teachable things. And he has the idea is that he is easily coached, right? Becoming a coach's kid and all that. So I see it with Ivy. I see the upside. I just think that Paulo's more of a sure thing, and that's why I would lean that way. I think Paulo's a better passer than Ivy. I think he's better at creating space for himself right now. I think Ivy has potential to be better at the latter for sure, self-creation, just with his speed. But right now, Paulo's better at it, and I'd rather just go that way, I think, if that was the scenario. I know unlikely, but I think it's an interesting conversation.
And he's the latest in a long line of those Seattle area hoopers, and we know how that goes. I mean, if you're coming from that area, that generally bodes pretty well for you with success in basketball in general. So I think that's another big check mark for Paolo Banchero.
Yeah, that and his mom was drafted by the Monarchs in 2000 in the 3rd round. Played 9 games for the Monarchs.
I didn't get to cover her because I got there a little bit later, but yeah.
Rhonda Smith Banchero. But she didn't play for very long, and she didn't play very much.
No.
And I think that was the only season she was in the WNBA. But that's kind of the WNBA, especially in
JaVale
that
McGee's mom played with the Monarchs.
So. Yeah. You remember that cringeworthy? I don't know who did. Your mom is still with us, right? Like, do you mean is my mom still alive? That was
so terrible.
One of those moments, like, oh no, was that? I'm not even going to say a name. I'm going to stay away from saying a name there. We'll keep talking about this because, of course, the draft is coming up. But like, if you're at number 4. Are you considering moving down 2 spots? Are you considering
just 2?
2, 3, 4?
What's
1?
What's the scenario, James? Because you know me, I'm all about wheeling and dealing right now. I'm looking at every possibility of moving the pick.
Yeah, would you trade number 4 for number 6 and Malcolm Brogdon?
Probably not.
Yeah, because I know like one of the rumors were like, one of the pontifications were like, oh, they could move from 4 to 6 for Chris Duarte. And it's like, man, that's not getting it done. That's a 24. I mean, he's older than De'Aaron Fox coming out of his rookie season. I mean, that's crazy. So I still think that there are ways that you could work with Indiana. But
just say the other name, James. Just say the Detroit name already.
No, I haven't. Got to
keep the streak going for both of them.
That wasn't part of my plan here.
We were
no, but
there.
I could see like if you moved down to 6, and you were able to get something. I mean, what about Miles Turner?
That already didn't work with Sabonis and Turner.
Did
you know
it not
what I mean?
work,
it didn't work?
Did the players around them not work with them?
Yes, to both answers. It's just, but we know it didn't work, and it's not like it's going to work better in Sacramento.
Well, I don't know because
I think the idea was that Turner wanted to be a little bit more featured as kind of in a 2-man game, and that's just not going to happen with Sabonis.
Well, that's not going to happen with anyone. Like, I would like to be
enough.
featured in a 2-man game at the NBA level as well. It wouldn't go well, but I would take the paycheck. It's just not going to happen. that's some next level Jason Thompson stuff right there. Like, bro, you're never
Right.
get 12
You're
shots
not-
a game.
You're not doing that.
It's never happening. It didn't happen in Turkey. It didn't happen in China. Like, you're a good dude, but that's not happening.
The Kings need shooting. I mean, there's a Buddy Hield right there.
There is a Buddy Hield. I know. Didn't we talk about, what if you traded down to 6 and your ask was Tyrese Halliburton?
Yeah.
And you got Tyrese back? Yeah, there would be like celebrations in the streets in Sacramento, and then it wouldn't work, and
And it
everyone
wouldn't
would be
work.
angry. Yeah, it wouldn't work. Yeah, I think that there's some interesting like ways that this could go, and I think again, roster creation is the biggest issue the Kings have at this point. Moving up in the draft, we've talked about this before. It takes away all of your leverage to do anything else this offseason. So Chet Holmgren would have to be like all world in year 1 to change the trajectory of the Kings, because it's not like you could go out and make a bunch of other moves, because you're going to have to give up a first-round pick. It's going to be lottery protected. It's probably going to be lottery protected the first 2 years at least, which means you can't trade a draft pick for like, I don't know, you could until 2026 if you protected the first 2 years. Actually,
If it doesn't convey.
if it doesn't, well,
Because it could just, like, if you put top 4 on it next year and then it was just the 6th pick, you just have, like, one deadline
Well,
in off-season of not it being available.
no, you're right. You're right in theory, but here's the problem. It's that you can't trade the picks if there is a potential
Right.
like for your draft pick to go out. So what you do is you set yourself up with while it's probably going to convey, probably doesn't matter when it comes to trading picks. So you couldn't trade like, again, 4 for 2, and you give up a top 5 protected in 2023, a top 8 protected in 2024, a top 10 protected in 2025, and 2026 is unprotected. Now you can't trade your first round pick until 2028. Now you might be able to after this offseason, but for right now, there would be no other ammunition that you had to go out and make a substantial addition outside of Chet Holmgren, because you wouldn't have any more picks unless you're giving up Harrison Barnes, and then you don't have a small forward.
Or Rashawn Holmes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 I also
think-
I also am not a fan of the what I call handlebars. I don't like it's protected here for this. It's like you outlined, James. To me, it's almost just pull the Band-Aid off. Like give up the pick so you don't mortgage your future and have these like possibilities of not having your pick based off what happens. It's almost better just to get rid of it, and not have to worry about the.
But you're the
I'm telling
Kings,
you,
man.
Right? I know you are. You are the
years,
Kings.
You could
16
just
years
top
in the
4.
lottery.
You could just top 4, though, and make sure it doesn't jump. Or
True.
you get some small chance that it jumps. And
You're
more
top
likely
4
than
in year
not,
1 and not protected.
yeah, you're
in year
probably
2.
getting rid of that pick next year. More likely than not.
Or
Okay.
this year. Why not this year?
Why not this year? Yeah.
Like, why would this year be any different when you already have a top 4 pick?
Yeah.
Like to trade the pick.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
I think it's interesting. I think the argument for trading up and still making enough improvement into next season is that you should have like 65-plus games of Fox and Sabonis this year. And last year you were dealing with a coach that you got rid of in the middle of the season. This year you're going to have one consistently throughout the entire year. You should have an entire season of Fox and Sabonis and whatever other little complimentary moves that are made.
Oh, Brenden.
And maybe I know. I know.
Brenden. All these caveats, let's fast forward to June 7th, 2023. All those caveats you're saying, you're going to have a whole set of different ones. That's how this shit works. Every single year, you're going to have a whole slew of different caveats. Well, they'll have a different general manager at that time, or it could be whatever. It's always something with it. That's what I'm saying. 1 through 4 now, you already have it. Who knows what next year is? The only thing else I'll say is, if you've seen the movie Draft Day with Kevin Costner, it's not very good, but it's a guilty pleasure watch. And he says, we live in a different world than we did 20 minutes ago. And that is true. So this world where the number 4 pick may or may not have a value similar to what next year would be, where maybe it has more value in maybe a different type of draft where people think the talent might be better. We don't know, but let's just say
Next
for the
year's
sake of
draft.
argument,
Yeah,
is-
they're considered 2 potential superstars at the top.
right.
Yeah.
So in that world, maybe it has a different meaning. But again, we're living in the now, and in the present, again, it's still your most valuable asset. So if you have your most valuable asset and you're trying to win now and you're trying to get better now, you're going to explore it. And that's why, if you're looking at the two of having to move, again, it's all depending on what you get, but it's probably more attractive right now than it is next year, because you may not be at number 1, 2, 3, or 4.
I just watched the video of Vlade telling you asked a question.
Don't do that.
I just watched it, and it was just such a jarring moment where he thought he was trying to explain something in a way that would make sense to all of us, and all of us looked at him like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. You should not have said that about I had a better deal 2 days ago."
Which is funny because you can count almost to 5 before I go, then you had now? Then you got right now? And
so what is it you're trying to say?
Yeah, then why did you do it? If it was better
Yeah.
then and you're getting the worst deal now, you didn't have to take the deal.
No. Yeah.
You
That
certainly
was
don't have
That's
to
why
say
you want to
that.
grab him by the the lapels on his jacket and go, "You fool, what are you doing?"
You fool. Never tell us. And his point was, go talk to the agents. Go talk to the agents. It's like,
No,
Well,
you're
yeah,
the guy that said it.
yeah, we don't care. We don't care what the agents made you did. The agents didn't make you do it. No, the devil didn't make you do it, Vlade. You did it on your own. You took a deal and you didn't go out and shop it more after the weirdness. I know what happened there. He was going to get another first-round pick, not a second-round pick, and they pulled one of those off the table when DeMarcus's people said that he would not sign an extension if they traded for him, which DeMarcus never got his extension anyways. I just thought it was interesting because of what you were saying about the game day thing and the trades.
You
Everything's
live in a
20
different
minutes.
world. Yeah, that's what he did. He called him a pancake eating MF, and he changed. He got all his draft picks back, and David goddamn Putney, as he called him. So it's a great movie. It's not a great movie, but it's a great movie. It's like one of those movies where it's not great, but if it's on, I'm watching it.
Okay.
Have seen that one.
Oh,
Yeah, look at that.
I haven't
Look at
seen
that.
it. Yeah.
Did you watch Swingers yet?
I did not yet. I figured
Homework
out it's on
assignment was
Hulu.
due.
This is the plan. Yeah, no, I have it here. I got it before the next episode. I'll make sure it's done.
And by the way, that's a quick watch. If you take a break in that, even to
I
take a
won't.
leak, sir, I'm
I
going to be
won't.
very disappointed.
Yeah, I'll be all right.
That's
Okay.
funny.
I'll
I
get
watched
back
some
to you guys
weird
on Thursday.
some weird Vince Vaughn movie last night where he fathered 533 children through a
What?
sperm bank.
Oh yeah,
And- Yeah, it actually was pretty good. I was surprised. It was like, hey, this isn't half bad. Anyway, yeah.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think my point of being willing to take a player that maybe is not contributing all that much in year one, and the idea of, okay, well, he's just not going to have enough of an impact right away. He's not going to change what's going on. Is that I think there already are enough reasons that they should have been a play-in team already. They underperformed based on the talent of their roster last year. I think they should be a play-in team next year. And when you look at the talent of the roster, it's difficult, admittedly, when you start to look at the other surrounding teams that you also say should be play-in rosters. And the Kings probably are somewhere near the bottom there, but they only got 15 games of Fox and Sabonis last year, and they have a new coach. They're not going to have to change that up in the middle of the season. I think it's reasonable that a Chet Holmgren can come in and in year one be better than a Chimezie Metu was, or a Trey Lyles, or a Marvin Bagley, or a Mo Harkless. I think that he could have enough of improvement in year one from a pretty low starting point and a low bar that they are just marginally better in year one. And you take that marginal improvement rather than trying to fast track it and make it all happen next year, because you're trying to make sure that your ceiling is a team that can get out of the first round. Because I understand you just need to get the monkey off your back 16 years of no postseason, but what happens if you go to the postseason and there's just no chance of ever getting out of the first round? I think the fan base will feel good about getting to the postseason, but I think you could get tired of it quick.
See, here, Sean and I have been through this forever. So you're going through the stages of denial, and now you're rationalizing. And I mean, I get it because I've done that a million times. Like, well, they shouldn't be that bad. You make a couple of adjustments. This last season, they shouldn't have been that bad. You won the equivalent of 35 games with nobody, and then you went out and you added some players and you added some depth, and you should have been better, and you got worse.
Keep in mind the words the two of you idiots are saying all the time is should and shouldn't. Don't do that with the Kings. Quit doing that. This is what drives me crazy.
Don't say that, Bencini.
You have to get to a point where you're not. Look, there's no reason you should say that they should be better, or excuse me, that they shouldn't be as bad as they are. They are. They are that bad. They are just that bad. Until they prove otherwise, you can't say they should not. Right?
I've had this discussion with Sean.
I know it makes my freaking head explode.
I love it.
If you are going to project, Brenden, let me tell you, no matter what roster that looks like, and you're projecting a win total for next year, do not project something they have not done yet. You know what I mean? Like, you have to see it first. I get it. You can be a gambler. You can project high, but don't get out over your skis, man. Like,
yeah. They should win more than 30
it's like
games
staring at a
year.
freaking zebra waiting for it to change its stripes. It's still a zebra.
I'll tell you, man.
Sounds like you've been staring at this zebra for a long time,
Right.
and it's
So-
driving you a little crazy.
Well, it's 16 years for just with the
Yeah.
playout drought alone. So if you're until you see something different, what I like to call, I'm not even gonna call it. I'll that's too mean. Until you see something different, then you can, right? Until you see something different, then you should. Then you can get into all the what they should be and shouldn't be. I like to do it as players more so than like win totals as a team, because you can look at a player and say, boy, you should be better than you are, or you should not be this bad. That to me is where, and you might say it's the same thing, but I don't think so, because, a lot of times I like to say guys can be products of their environment, which is true. But it's also like, I hate to bring up any person in the draft. I don't want to bring up this person because it just has PTSD for Kings fans alike. But if you have a Luka Doncic, I think he still would be very, very, very good. Don't get me wrong. I think you know a different Luka Doncic in Sacramento than the one you know in Dallas. Like, you have trajectories. You've got these paths, right? If he goes to Dallas, it looks like this, and it looks fantastic. If he goes to Sacramento, it doesn't look the same. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I think you know a different Luka Doncic than you do with him going to Dallas, had he gone to Sacramento. I'm not saying he wouldn't be a star, but I do feel like you would have a different level of consciousness when it comes to that player.
Yeah, I mean, you would also have a different De'Aaron Fox.
Correct. Or you may not any De'Aaron Fox.
Well, you already had him, but, he was coming off a really bad rookie season. He took a really solid leap in year 2 and then a bigger leap in year 3. But I don't think he would have taken the same leap in year 2 just because he wouldn't have had the ball primarily. He wouldn't have the ball nearly as much. And, again, everything changes. Like, we can't say that, if the Kings would have brought Bogdanovic back, would they have won more games? Would they have made the play-in last year? Probably. That you can pretty much say that. I mean, they missed it by 2 games, and he was worth way more than 2 games to them.
And they need a starting 2 guard.
Yeah, they needed a starting 2 guard. He had taken over for Buddy Hield the year before midseason, and all of a sudden the team was really playing well. What were they, 13-7, the final 20 games? They were like really moving before the pandemic shut down and then the bubble. But again, like the next year, people go, well, he only played 46 games or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but we can't project that he would have had the same knee injury if he was in Sacramento. You just can't project what would have happened in those situations. So it's difficult.
When it comes to how much a player can contribute next year, and we'll stick with Chet in the conversation because I feel like he's the best example for this. And the Kings do need to turn it around sooner rather than later. But I think that valuing ceiling, even if that means being a little bit patient, should be important. Say that they trade up and it's next year's future first. We'll call it top 4 protected. And they end up taking Chet at 2. And then let's say, just to lay out a hypothetical, that Rashawn Holmes gets traded for, let's say, Marcus Morris. and that's your roster next season. Dante DiVincenzo comes back. You have Fox, DiVincenzo, Barnes, Chet, Sabonis with Marcus Morris, Davion Mitchell on your bench. Do you think that team can win 34, 36 games? That was the play-in teams last year.
Yeah, but the playoff teams won't be that this year. I mean, that was a particularly bad year. I don't think that there's going to be. I think you got to look at you got to get like 41, 42 wins to like project that it's a play-in team.
But I also think it's just an impossible situation to try to peg wins to a team like that where you really don't know what to expect. Are we talking injuries? Are we talking, what happens? I don't know. I also feel like, especially with someone like Marcus Morris, you better have and I'm not saying your scenario, Brenden, means that it wouldn't, but you have to have a lot of the right scenario because we've seen good Marcus Morris and we've seen bad Marcus Morris. And so he almost needs a habitat to be able to excel as opposed to one where it's like, well, this guy's just a log jam and just kind of takes up space on the bench.
Yeah. And it's less about Marcus Morris. I guess it's just more of me thinking that, like, they should be incrementally better enough next year that they are in. I know they should. But they should have been in the play-in conversation this year.
And they were. I mean, let's be honest. They were.
They were. And if you have Sabonis for 60 games with Fox instead of the 15 that you had, like, in my mind, they should be fighting for that 9-10 spot.
That word you keep saying it. I do
know.
Not think he means what you think it means.
He needs like a shot collar around his neck that every time he says should or shouldn't regarding the Kings, it just zaps the shit out of him.
Does like Paolo or Jabari? I'll work on it. Does Paolo or Jabari even change it out of like a should?
That's
it's like, they are a play-in team?
I think, to me, in terms of immediate impact, Paulo, Jabari, Ivy, Griffin. There's a handful of guys where I can identify and say he helps you right now. You get in the sense of you can have a positive impact on a team right away. It won't be star power. It won't be anywhere near the max potential of those players. But I feel like a handful of those players can help in a positive manner right away.
I'd only put it at there's four players in the top 10 that I would look at: Chet, Jabari, Paolo, and the fourth Keegan. I would say Keegan. To me, those are the only ones that are top 8 rotation players year one that potential for starters. That
Ivy would play. Ivy would definitely.
He's going to play, but I don't think he's going to have an impact.
No, he would have an impact. I think there's varying degrees of impact. I think he would have a positive impact rotationally on a Kings team right away.
Okay. Enough that they're like really in a play-in conversation, or
no, I just think that those types of players, like, you can walk away saying,
what should his impact be, Sean?
Like, see there? What I say with players, it's different. I will say, like, again, however you look at, you get I got the best player available. Okay, great. You walk away from a draft and you can say, we got better today. Some of those players we just talked about, that's what I'm talking about. You can get better today in the sense of having that player who can make an immediate impact, varying degrees, of course, depending on the player, on your current roster. But again, you don't draft that way. You want to draft best player available, and hopefully it's also something that fits your need great. But at the end of the day, you're going to go best player available. I do think I have identified a few players that I feel can positively impact a roster for the next season, as opposed to somebody that's going to need some time to incubate, as I said in the last podcast, and somebody gave me shit about it. So I like that one. I'll continue to use incubate.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just think you have to be flexible in this draft because, like, Brenden and I were talking about, like, in 2K rating, I mean, the Kings really need like a 88 to 92 player, right?
Yeah,
that's what,
right.
Just like pie in the sky. Let's just, like, because it's a way to think of it. You need a player that's like an 88 to 92. Not this year. I mean, it'd be great if they drop from the sky and that's who you got. But really, you need to project a player that gets that good. But this team also needs like 2 80s, an 82, and an 84. if they're going to actually compete. And you have to find a way to get those other pieces. Now, you might not be able to do it in year 1 or year 2. You might need to find a couple of 78s and hope that they can be a little bit better. But this team is not good enough. The talent is not good enough, and they need to find a player like a John Collins to add to the mix, or a Grant to add to the mix. Like, there has to be someone who isn't like an 80 rated player that's like higher level that can help change the dynamic of your team. And that's where, again, like trading up eliminates almost any way of doing that, because now you don't have draft capital to go do stuff, to do other things. But like, that's where I think moving down in the draft, you might be able to get an 84. You might be able to get an 82. You might be able to get 2 of those players. And then your draft pick on top of that has potential to get better and to be, a Keegan Murray that could possibly be like an 84 player down the road, or an 83 player down the road. So that's what I like. The construction of this team right now, it's not good enough. And I get what you're saying, Brendan. It's not good enough. Like, they have too many guys who are 68 to 71s, in again, the 2K rating world. They have too many of those guys. That they're not bad guys, and you need some of those guys on your roster, but they can't have so many. Yeah, you can't have too many of them. Well, again, like a Sadiq Bey is like an 80, 81, 82. Yeah.
To keep the 2K ratings discussion going, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis. Actually, where do you think, just top of your head, where do you think those ratings are?
85, 86.
You're very close. So who are you putting higher?
Sabonis.
Yeah, so Sabonis is 87, and Fox is an 84.
Jeez. Yeah, I thought Fox's rating was way too low. Way too low. Like, I mean, I thought it was
should
too low.
be higher. It should be this.
No, coming off the season that he had, not like this coming season, I could see it being an 84 because he took a step backwards. But coming off the season that he had the year before, that's not an 84 player.
And by the way, I think
you just run past everyone.
For the entire season, I was looking. They let you chart the weekly movement. For Sabonis, it stayed 86, 87 throughout the season. Fox, by the way, I can't believe we're even doing this, started at an 85, dipped to an 83, and held that way for the better part of November through February, and then March to where we are now has gone up to an 84.
You had this
What did they see? What did they see, by the way, from March to now that gave them, you know what, we're going from 83 to 84.
He finished his season really well before he got sick. Before he hurt his hand. I'll just say, like, I don't love using 2K ratings as like a way,
but it's fun.
I think it's a good way for you to think of players that they need, the type of player that they need. Again, a Harrison Barnes, I think, was down around like a 78, 79, right?
Oh, probably, yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I mean, like
they may not have another 80 on the entire roster, and
they
I'm
need
sure someone will find it. Right.
They need 3 80s. I mean, 3 guys in their 80s coming out of the draft and free agency. That's a tall task. It is, because if you're not going to give up one of your 80s to go get an 80, and you're not going to, that makes it very, very difficult.
HB is an 80 currently and was as high as 83 this season, but did dip, but started at 78. Yeah. And again, this was a hell of a season for HB.
Yeah. I still like, again, like you need 2 more Harrison Barnes at a minimum, and maybe one of them that's substantially better. So, and I think, like, again, like getting back to I think Banchero can be a mid 80s player. Like, sure. I think Ivy probably has a potential to be a low 90s player, but realistically, you're hoping he gets to be like an 87. You're hoping he gets like Steve Francis.
Yeah, I think Banchero could actually get to a low 90s as well, but I think I would project Ivy higher personally.
Yeah.
How good do they have to be next year? Is making the play-in enough
for the Kings?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
that's their dream. But,
yeah,
I mean, 16
but
years
just
of
even
utility
being in the play-in, not even winning the play-in. Is that enough?
You're talking about making a play. I mean, anything postseason from where you are, that'll be a step in the right direction. You know.
I feel like it would be enough if they
But
were
I
the
feel-
10 seed and lost the game.
I feel you go and get a guy like Sabonis, your expectation is that you're higher up in the playoffs a little bit.
They should.
Especially given an offseason and a number 4 pick. Like, I think the expectation is going from what you have this season into next season with De'Aaron Fox taking another step, with Davion Mitchell taking another step. That you should compete a lot, be a much more competitive team.
Oh, he said it.
No.
He did.
No.
And he said it in a team
I'm saying,
way, by the
I'm
way.
saying the projected calculus for their team, not us saying what they should be.
funny.
No. We cannot do the same thing. We have to see it.
We'll watch
to
the
see
tape.
it.
We'll watch the tape.
We'll watch the tape.
We'll watch the tape. Awesome. Okay, we're gonna finish up. Sean, what are you taking in at the Pro Am? Anything interesting?
Oh yeah, going out to if people don't know, down in Elk Grove, there's a
The Grove, as
school,
we call it.
The Grove, yes, the Grove. There's a school down Bighorn Boulevard called Fortune Early College High School. It's like a prep school, kind of a charter school, if you will. It's it's a brand new school. The gymnasium looks amazing. And it's brand new, and that's housing for the next 2 weeks the Sacramento Pro Developmental Basketball League, which is a summer league, and dates back to 1989. You see a lot of guys that have NBA, G League, international, top college experience, and many of them have a lot of ties to our area. And it's a lot of fun. You get like 4 teams, and they're all pretty much stacked. And I think tickets are like $7, but it's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for this week and next week. It'll end on the 17th. And you can go out there and see, if you're bored, I mean, hey, you can see some pretty competitive basketball. There were 2 games every single night, and it was a lot of fun. Last night we got to see Christian Terrell, who is a Sac High product, who went to Sac State. He was on this Kings G League team and could be part of the Kings Summer League team. I kind of expect him to be there. And he got to see someone like him, Marcus Graves, who's on the Bucks G League team, who went from another Sac State kid, by the way, who went from Stockton Kings, was traded to Milwaukee last year, and he's in the Milwaukee G League. He'll be on the Bucks Summer League squad. Even a guy like Fabian White Jr., who worked out for the Kings already, he's got a lot of workouts coming up. He's working out here in Sacramento, but he's got a lot of workouts. I know Dallas is among them. The Warriors is another one. He's the kid from Houston, all-time winningest player from Houston. That's saying something when they've had players like Elijah Wan and Clyde Drexler come through there. Clyde Drexler, right? He went to Houston. Yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a lot of players like that. And then you get guys like, Eli Pemberton, a lot of G League players. You see Iroegbu and Ike Iroegbu, who are in the G League as well, also from Elk Grove, who also played on the Nigerian national team under Mike Brown and Jordi Hernandez as well, who was the coach with that team. So a lot of Kings and a lot of Northern California ties. Guy like Malik Pope, man, I liked watching him. Malik Pope was a Laguna Creek kid who broke his leg twice in high school, was a very big heralded recruit, and ended up, it really set him back. Now he was with G League Ignite last year, and him and Dakari Allen, who's from Sacramento, was also with G League Ignite. So a lot of fun to watch some of these guys kind of go the Gabe Vincent route. Gabe Vincent, this is a league that Gabe Vincent has played in. Guys like Matt Barnes has played in this league. Ryan Anderson's played in this league. So a lot of guys with NBA ties and guys that are projecting to kind of make a splash. So one of the guys, too, I wanted to bring up, Jeff Downton. I think he's now over in Orlando, but was with the Warriors G League, got a summer league invite. Now he's on an NBA roster, I think, as a two-way player maybe. Kyle Guy is going to be playing in this, I think was supposed to play in this. And then you got 2 high schoolers, which are fun. One of them is Paige's kid, Andrei Stojakovic. He didn't play last night. I think he's scheduled to play at some point during these next 2 weeks. And another one is Amir Britton, who is from Elk Grove's state championship team. So these are guys that one is still currently in high school in Andrei Stojakovic, and another one who just finished high school and may not be a D1 player, but everyone says is a D1 player, but is not going to be able to play at a D1 school. So it's kind of fun to watch the journey of some of these guys, because you see a lot of guys who are able to go overseas, make money, come back, play in this league. and see that they're still going to be able to play basketball. So be a lot of fun. Get out there.
All right. We also, let's see, De'Aaron, Davion Mitchell, Doug Christie, Luke Lauk. Is that how we say his name? Do we know how to say his name yet?
Haven't learned.
We haven't learned how to say his name yet. They were all at the finals, and I think there may have been other Kings coaches and players that were there to support Mike Brown. So they're at the finals game. Was that last night before? Sunday.
Game 2, yeah.
Game 2. Yeah. So that's good that they're spending time together. I also, on a sad note, we've Randy Brink passed away. Randy is been around the Kings as long as I have been. He's a very, very special dude that was a big sports fan in Sacramento, but also, I don't know, developmentally slow. I think he worked for Pride Industries, but he's been around like the sporting world. Like he used to walk in leading the way for Paul Westphal. Like he would basically say, coach is coming, and walk Paul Westphal in. He's been part of the game night at the Sacramento Kings, the Republic, the River Cats. I don't know, the Republic. Basically, their game that they won the other night, they dedicated to him. So sending love to Randy Brink's family. He passed away this last week, and sad times. And a good guy who was around a whole lot over the last couple of years.
Yeah, we're gonna miss him. He every time you saw Randy, he'd make you smile. And I know Mitch Richmond and him had a neat little relationship dating back. He's been around a long time, man. So it's sad. It's very sad. We're gonna definitely miss him. But every time you saw him, just instantly bring a smile to your face and make you feel better.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a business of basketball? I don't know.
I can't think of one. Maybe that was the SPDL, the Sac Pro Developmental League. I mean, you see so many guys. We were talking a minute ago about how rosters take shape and how you have to rely on someone like Gary Payton II. I mean, the G League is such a huge funnel now for NBA teams, and just getting onto the G League is a big step for a lot of these guys. And they don't get paid entirely well. It's a lot like minor leagues, so. Everyone has a different path to the NBA. There's no blueprint for a lot of people. I think everyone would say the blueprints go to college and then try to work your way to a team, but there's no guarantees. So it's just, I think it's fun to see the unorthodox path for a lot of these professionals.
All right. Brenden, do you have any final thoughts?
I noticed in our chat that Sean spelled his name with a money sign instead of an S, and I just thought that was hilarious, but that's all I got for my final thought here.
Yeah, I don't know why I did. I actually did that when we first went to when I first rejoined the podcast after James and I's falling out because we hated each other for a certain amount of time. That's completely false, by the way. I just like driving that narrative. It's so fun.
It is fun.
I noticed the money sign in the middle of a rant of mine, and it totally threw me off.
It's for you.
Who the hell does this guy think he is?
Totally paused, right in the middle of the. Oh no, I've lost my train of thought. There's a money sign. That's good stuff. Sean, do you have any final thoughts?
I do. I saw Top Gun, man.
I haven't seen it yet. I heard
Brendan,
it's
Top
good,
Gun is a film
I've
from the
seen
80s.
Top Gun.
Okay, all right.
Shut up, Sean.
I thought it was super hokey, but the action scenes are unbelievably intense. So from that alone, it was pretty good. And hey, by the way, Tom Cruise, I know you're 60-something years old. You're on that motorcycle and doing all these crazy stunts that you're known to do. But you're in California. It was setting in San Diego. Put on a freaking helmet, my guy.
But if he put on a helmet, it would be one of those stupid ones, like the little skull cap ones. I mean, he would do something really dumb. Because you can see it. You just envision, what would Tom Cruise do to really be spiteful that he has to wear a helmet? And then it's oh, he looks like a fool.
You know why he didn't? Because they wanted to show it was actually Tom Cruise on that motorcycle and not some stunt guy. That's why.
Yeah, but didn't he like snap his ankle doing the Mission Impossible, one of the later Mission Impossible movies? Like when he went to jump off of one roof and onto the next, he caught his foot on the front and snapped his ankle.
Guy's
like,
amazing.
Yeah, he does like to do a lot of his own stunts. So
He does.
I don't know.
And there's another Mission Impossible coming out. I was like, my God, man.
You gotta do your
37th
franchise.
one or what?
I don't know. There's fewer of those than there are Fast and the Furious.
I was gonna say which one has more.
Fast
they
and
should-
Furious
Fast
is
and
I think is at 9, and I think Mission Impossible is at 5 or 6.
If you're at 5 or 6, they should change the title to Mission Quite Possible.
At this point, it should be possible.
It
Yeah.
should be possible.
Interesting.
It should
Yeah.
be impossible, but this guy keeps beating the odds. He is
Yeah.
the anti-Kings.
I'll keep telling people too. Watch The Offer. I think that's what it's
Oh,
called.
I gotta watch that.
It's on Paramount. It is the behind the scenes, the making of The Godfather, the original Godfather film, and to me, it's like it's really, really well done. So
Of course,
that's
The
my
Godfather.
binge-worthy TV watching for this week. Outside of that, okay, I that's gonna do it. We've gone through final thoughts. If you're still listening, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe. Again, new shirts at the Kings Beat merch shop. They're super cool. I should have had one with me. I mean, I could spin around and you could see my back, but I'll probably kill myself trying to do that. So we're not going to do that. But outside of that, make sure you're subscribing to the Kings Beat. Do a premium subscription. It's just about less than 1 gallon of gas.
Which is
jump
saying
on board.
something these days. Holy God.
Yeah. So jump on board with the Kings Beat, and we'll see you on Thursday. So for Fox 40's Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, and of course the Kings Herald, I am James Ham, your Kings insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you later this week.